Help in Pharmaceuticals in association with Higher Secondary Principals Forum.
Hello students, and a warm welcome for today's session in economics. Now today we are going to be dealing with unit 3, that is producers' behavior. Now one thing I want all of you all to keep in mind is that so far, especially in chapter 2 and in chapter 3, our focus has been on consumer behavior. Okay, we wanted to know what is their utility, we wanted to know what is their income, what is their preference, how they are indifferent, or what is their consumer's equilibrium, what is the demand of an individual as well as of the market where the consumer is concerned, what are the different elasticities. So the entire focus here was on the consumer. Now this chapter we are shifting this focus. This focus is being shifted from the consumer, we are moving on to the producer. Now here we have to think, entire chapter we have to think as a producer. So what are the things that the producer faces? What are the things that he has to keep in mind, whether it is his cost, whether it is his production, whether it is his revenue, all these concepts we have to keep in mind. So the first thing that I want all you children to remember is that our focus here is the behavior of the producer and not of the consumer. Let us start with something called as the production function. Okay? Here we can see it is a functional relationship between physical inputs and physical output of a commodity. Now, functional relationship is basically a technical relationship, a working relationship. We are not going to consider what is the cost that is involved. We are not going to consider how much money is involved in the inputs or in the outputs. What we are going to consider is one side physical input and on the other side the physical output that we will be getting. Now, what do you mean by physical input or physical output? Let me give you a simple example. Now let's say a carpenter wants to produce a wooden table. Now what are the things that will go in the production? Okay, we will have the main factors. One, which is the land. The land is the building or the workshop where the carpenter is working. The labor here is the carpenter himself, and the machine here are the tools that he will be using, whether it is a saw, whether it is a specific cutter that he has, or whether it is a polisher. Plus he will be using other non-factors like glue, maybe nails. Okay, the hammer will become the tool or the machine. So all these things that to produce, for example, let's say he took 2 planks of wood, one carpenter, that is the labor, and let's say he used 3-4 machines, okay, one saw, one cutter, or a shaper, polisher. All these are his tools that he is using. So all of them together, the labor, the land and the machine, all together become his physical inputs. Okay, as we have mentioned there, they become the physical inputs. So there is no, we are not considering what is the cost of the wood. We are not considering whether the carpenter, how much he will be paid. We are not considering the economic or the money point of view. We are considering only physical input. So we take all these inputs together, the wood, the labor, the machines, all of them together, and they become the physical input. And when they are processed, okay, when they all work together, we get the physical output, which is the wooden table. So we have to remember it is a functional relationship, a working or a technical relationship between physical inputs as well as physical output. Now below here you all can see the formula, how to calculate the production function. So here we have Q, which is the commodity X, the quantity or the production of commodity X, which is a function of L, which is the labor input, and K, which is the capital input. So, we are considering the two main factors, labor and capital. So, here we have the production of commodity. So, if we want commodity X, labor and capital will work together, and they will be able to produce the commodity X. Now, production function can work both in the short run as well as in the long run. Now, what is short run and long run? Now, to understand what is short run, long run, we look at something called as fixed and variable factors. Now, fixed factor, like we were talking about the carpenter. In this particular case, when we are talking about the carpenter, what happens? There are certain inputs that remain fixed for certain time, like the machine that he is going to be using for polishing, maybe for cutting, or the saw or the hammer. He will not change it for every table that he will be producing. He will be using that for a particular amount of time, maybe for a few months, maybe for a few years. So, they will remain the same. But the wood that he is going to be using, the nails that he will be using, his work that he is putting in, that will keep on changing. Every new table, his work will change, the wood will change, the nails that he has used, the glue that he has used. So, certain factors are there which are going to be changing, while certain factors are going to remain the same. Now, short run time period is a time period when we have certain factors which are fixed and certain factors which are variable. Now, what is variable? Variable means, or it comes from the word varies. What is to vary? To vary means to change. So, all those factors which you can easily change, okay, within a very small time period, they are your variable factor, while those factors which remain fixed, you do not change them over a particular time period, they become your fixed factor. Now, in the short run, okay, let us, before going to the short run and the long run, let us look at what is the difference between a fixed factor and a variable factor. A fixed factor is one whose application does not change with output. That means, let us consider a machine which has the capacity of producing anywhere between 1 unit to 1000 unit. Okay? So, depending upon what is the demand in the market, the producer will decide to produce whether 1 unit or he can go up till 1000. So, if his demand in the market is 200 or 300 or 500 or 800 or 1000, he will be using the same machine. So, the machine, even the output is changing, the output is increasing. Sometimes the output may decrease also. It may go up to 500, 800, 1000, may come down again to 900. So, your output is changing, but that one machine, the application of that one machine, we are not changing. We are using the same machine, okay, whether for 200, whether for 800, whether for 600, whether for 1000, we are using the same machine. So, that particular factor remains the same even though the output is changing. But what happens in the case of variable factor? As your output changes, the application also will be changing. So, what is happening here? I will give you a simple example. For example, let us say the carpenter who is the labor, he can produce 5 tables in one day. In a given day, let us say he can produce 5 tables. But let us say he has an order for 10 tables tomorrow. Tomorrow morning, he has to prepare 10 tables. What he will do? He has the tools, he has the wood, but he is one single person. So, in this case, what he is going to do is, he is going to maybe take another carpenter's help. So, the labor is increasing from 1, it is going to 2. And why is it going? Because the output has to be increased. Instead of 5 tables, now 10 tables have to be produced. And this change can happen immediately. Okay? Within a day, within half a day, within a week. So within a very short period, okay, soon such a factor can be changed as per the output. So that's why we call it as a variable factor. So this is the first point. Remember, if with the output how many machines you are using, that does not change, that machine becomes your fixed factor. But with the change in output, if your labor is keeping on changing, it's either going up or going down, then in that case it becomes a variable factor. The second point that we have to remember where the difference in fixed factor and variable factor is concerned is that whether the output is 0 or maximum, the fixed factor will remain 0. For example, let's say now we are in the corona pandemic, okay, and none of us may be going to buy new tables. New table is not a priority for us. It is not very important. Other things are more important, and with salary cuts, people losing the job, table may be the last priority for us. So naturally, what will happen to the carpenter? There will not be any person who will be coming and asking for his table, okay, or coming and buying his table or coming and demanding his table. So in that case, his output is 0. He is not producing anything, but his carpenter tools are still the same. The building or his workshop will not get over, it will still be the same. But the amount of wood that he is using or the work that he is doing, that will become 0. So here the use or the application of the fixed factor will remain the same whether the output is 0 or whether it is maximum. But in the case of variable factor, the application of the variable factor will be 0 if the output is 0. So if there is no production, he will not be doing any carpentry work. He will not be providing his service as a carpenter. So the labor will be 0 if the output is 0. But on the other hand, if the output is maximum, then also, or whether it is 0, fixed factor will remain the same, will not change till a particular time period. The third one, we are looking at examples. Fixed factor, we have machines or a factory. When I say a factory, it is the land on which the factory is or the factory building. These are some of the examples of a fixed factor, while variable factor we consider as labor, because labor, if I want today 10 workers, I can appoint them. And if tomorrow I want 15 unskilled laborers, then I can easily get 5 more extra. Day after tomorrow, I require 25, again I can go and get more workers. And after 2 days, if I want again 10, I can easily remove the workers who are there. So all these are the differences between the fixed factor and the variable factor. So now that we are clear about what is the difference between fixed factor and variable factor, let us go back to the short run and the long run. What you have to remember here is that in the short run, at least one factor will remain fixed, while the other factors may be variable, they will be changing. But in the long run, there is nothing called as a fixed factor. All of them are variable because the time period is such. For example, you want to buy a new machine. Can it be done within a day or within a week? No, it will become difficult. You have to arrange for the money, you have to place your order, you have to consider about transportation. Suppose it is coming from some other state or some other country, then permissions, so the paperwork and arranging the money and actually getting it installed and it starting to work, it will take certain amount of time. So that time period when you can easily change the machine, usually it is considered as more than 1 year. So such a time period is considered as the long run time period, while that time period where at least one factor will be remaining fixed, The others may be varying, but at least one factor will remain fixed, is called as the short run time period. To understand the production function in the short run better, we have a small example here. We are trying to produce 40 units. Okay? So, maximum 40 units if we have to get, we require 5 units of labor and 4 units of capital. L is for the labor and K is for the capital. But in the short run, one of them remains fixed. Now, you all can see the constant here above the capital. So, that shows that if you want to increase the production, for example, let us say from 40, now what you are producing is maximum, okay? Putting in 4 machinery or 4 capital and 5 units of labor, you are able to maximum get 40 units, okay? But in case you want to increase, then the only thing you can increase, for example, you want to go from 40 units to maybe 45 units. So, the only thing that you can increase is labor, capital will remain the same. So, then it will be 45 units is a function of 6 labor and 4 capital. So, here capital is remaining the same, it is not changing because this is a short run time period and all the factors are not variable. On the other hand, if we look at the long run, it is the same equation that we have put there, maximum 40 units of commodity X, we will require 5 labor and 4 capital. Now, in this case, what happens, if I want to increase, I want to go to 45 or maybe let us say in this case, I want to go to 60 units. Then in this case, I will change both my labor. So, I will increase my labor maybe from 5 to 6 or 7. And at the same time, I can also change my capital. Okay? So, from 4, I may be using 5 units of capital and maybe 7 units of labor. So, in the short run, we can see that one of them is going to remain fixed while the other will be variable, but in the long run, all the factors are variable. There is no fixed factor to be considered in this case. Okay. Now, these are certain concepts that we are going to be learning today in connection to production function. The first one is total product, or we call it also as TP. Now, pay attention to the words that I have focused on. Here we have a fixed factor which is constant, as the word says, it is fixed. So, it remains constant and it does not change. But to this fixed factor, we will be again and again adding more and more of the variable factor. And when we add to the variable factor, we will be getting our output. So, combining fixed factor and variable factor, we will be getting our output. Now, depending upon how many units of variable factor we have used, the output is going to be changing. The output is going to be changing. So, the sum total of the output, let me give you an example. Let us say there is a machinery or a piece of land. There is a piece of land on which there is production that is taking place. Now, there is the land which is fixed and there are the laborers who are working on this piece of land, and these laborers become our variable factor. Now, when both of them are combined, the land as well as the laborer, the output will be the crops. Okay? After they have put the seeds and other non-factors, the output will be the crops that will be produced. So, let us say one laborer, when he harvests, when he starts harvesting the crops that are involved, he gets 12 bags. Okay? And the second one gets 10 bags. The third one gets 15 bags. Now, you will be adding all these 3 together. Let us say there are 3 workers who are there and we will be adding up their output. The first one's output was 12, second one was 10 and the third one was 15. So, 12 plus 10 plus 15, we will be getting 37. So 37 will become your total product. Okay, so we have taken the fixed factor, we have added the variable factor to it, and the output that we get becomes, and when you add up the output of each of the laborer, what we get is your TP or your total product. Okay, so total product is the sum total. Okay, we have going to add the output of each of the variable factor combined with the fixed factor, and that output, when we add up the sum, okay, the key word here is the sum of output. So that because we are going to add up of each of the variable factor, and when we add it up, what we get is the total product. Next, what we are going to look at is something called as the marginal product. Here the key words are additional. Okay, the key words here are additional, because we are considering that we already have a particular amount. Now, I had given you the example of 3 laborers who are working on the land, and while harvesting they are able to get a total of 37 bags. Okay, they have harvested and the crop is ready. So they are able to put together 37 bags with these 3 workers. Now let's say the farmer is not happy, or the owner of the land is not happy with the speed. So he wants the speed to go up. So he employs 1 more extra. So it becomes 3 plus 1. Now by adding 1 more extra, the total product or the TP, which was 37, now let's say has moved to 45. Okay? So by adding 1 more, the total product has moved to 45. So in this case, the difference between 45 and 37 is 8 bags. Okay, the difference between, so the 4th laborer, by adding 1 more laborer, the extra or the additional output that the owner is going to get is 8 bags. So 8 bags becomes your marginal product. Okay, so we are going to consider what was previously the total product, and by adding 1 more unit of the variable factor, in this case the laborers, okay, by adding 1 more person to work in the harvesting process, he is getting extra 8 bags. So those 8 bags become your marginal product. This is the formula to find out the marginal product. So the N here is any one of the variable factor. You can take the first one, second one, third one, or the fourth one. So you will, MP of the fourth one will be TP of the fourth one minus TP 4 minus 1, that becomes the third one. So after 4 it was 45, before at 3 it was 37. So minusing both of them, you will get the marginal product of the 4th laborer or the 4th worker, that will be 8 bags of that particular crop. Now, if the owner wants to find out what is the average, now we have seen each of these workers are working at different levels. One is able to work and make 15 bags ready, one is able to make 10 bags, one is able to make 12, and one is able to make only 7. Suppose he wants to find out the average, then he will take the figure, okay, the figure that he has got 45, and he will divide it by the number of workers he has. He has 4, so 45 will get divided by 4. So approximately 11 bags are being produced or are being put together by each of the worker, and that becomes our average product. Okay, it is the physical output per unit, single, per laborer, how much he is able to do. Okay, that on an average you want to find out per laborer how much of the total, then we will be using this formula, and thus we will be able to find the average product. Now, next thing that we are going to be looking at is something called as the law of variable proportion. Okay, here we will see the production function, the total product, the marginal product in an actual example, how it works in reality. Now, this law is a short run law. Since it is short run, we have to remember all the factors cannot be changed. At least one will remain fixed while the other will be varying. First, we are looking at the statement. What does this law say? This law says we are having the fixed factor, we are having the variable factor. Now, the fixed factor, it is fixed, it is remaining the same. But the variable factor, we can keep on adding more and more. Okay? So, let us say we take a piece of land, let us say 1 acre of land. So, that land is fixed, the land is fixed. And on that land, we are going to have workers. At the beginning for the ploughing, later on for the planting, the transplanting, then fertilizing, pesticide, taking care of making sure the crops are not destroyed, then harvesting and making sure the crop is ready. So, all this is the work of the variable factor, which in this case is manpower or the workers who are there employed by the farmer. So, we will take the land which is fixed and we will keep on adding more and more variable factor to it. Now, at the beginning, the total product or the marginal product of the variable factor may increase, but ultimately a time will come that when as you keep on adding more and more workers to that same fixed piece of land, the variable, the marginal product of this variable factor, which is the laborer, will only become lesser and lesser or will start declining. Moving on, we look at what are the assumptions. Now, in economics, for the law to work, there are certain conditions which have to be fulfilled. If these conditions are not fulfilled, the law may not work in the real world. So, these conditions are our assumptions. The first one says the ratio in which factors of production are combined can be changed. So, we have one factor which is fixed and the other factor which is variable. So, there is a ratio. First, maybe you took one piece of land and 2 workers, then one piece of land, 5 workers. So, the ratio can change, but what is to be remembered is that only the variable factor can be changing. Okay? So, you can increase the workers on that piece of land or you can decrease the workers who are working on that piece of land. But that piece of land will remain the same. Same means suppose it is 1 acre, it is going to remain as 1 acre. It is not going to be increasing or even decreasing. But the variable factor, that is the workers who are going to be working on that field, they can either be increased in number or they can be decreased where the number is concerned. Second factor, now this is something which may not happen in real life, but it is assumed that the variable factor are homogeneous. Homogeneous means their capacity, okay, is the same. So, if for the first worker has a particular capacity, then all the workers who are employed on that field have the same amount of capacity. So, the variable factor are homogeneous. State of technology does not change. Now, the technology may be labor intensive or the technology may be capital intensive, wherein either you use more of workers or you use more of machinery, maybe a tractor or a harvester. So, whatever technology you are using at the beginning, that is the technology that is going to remain the same throughout. It is not going to be changing. So, here we have a schedule which is going to be showing. Now, one thing I would like to mention at the start, this schedule has been taken by me from the internet. So, it is a copyright of some other person. I do not have the copyright to this particular thing. So, and one more thing that I was not able to change is that the variable factor is also shown as land and the fixed factor is also shown as land. Okay? So, fixed factor is land, which is in acres, while the variable factor here is labor, the workers who are going to be there. It is not land. Land is the fixed factor. And land being fixed, we will see that it is 1, 1, 1, 1, 1 throughout. Okay? Throughout it is just 1 which it is there. But the variable factor, it is changing, it is increasing. First we had no worker, then we are keeping on increasing the number of workers who are working in that particular field. So first we had land, but we had no worker. It is just a piece of land, nobody is there to work on it. Naturally, the product, the total product that we are going to get from it is 0. We are not going to get anything from that particular piece of land. When we employ one worker on that same piece of land, our total product becomes 2. When we increase to 2 workers, our total product becomes 6. When we increase to 3 workers, our total product becomes 12. Same way, our total product keeps on increasing till we reach to the 6th unit. Okay? In that case, what is happening? It remains the same. There is no increase where the total product is concerned. And after that, if you continue increasing the total, the laborers or the variable factor, the total product is going to come down. Same way you see in the marginal. Now, I just want you children to remember one thing. An easy way to find the marginal is, first one will always be the same as TP. So, since TP is 0, MP also will be 0. Then TP is 2, so it will be 2 minus 0, we get 2. 6 minus 2, we get 4. 12 minus 6, we get 6. Moving on, 18 minus 18, we get 0. And 8 minus 14, we get it as a negative figure, that is minus 6. So, MP is increasing in the first stage. But if after that we keep on employing workers, MP is going to come down. We continue employing workers, MP can become 0. And if we still continue, then MP can become negative also. So, it is keeping on coming down, or it is keeping on getting lesser and lesser after a particular point. Now, what are some of the reasons for it? There is something called as diseconomies of scale. At the beginning, we have economies of scale, and the second, then we have the diseconomies where the factor is concerned. So, at the beginning, what will happen? Since the land is underutilized, one worker, see this is in acres, for one worker to work on an acre of land is not possible. So, he will do his best, but there is more capacity for that particular land. So, when the fixed factor is underutilized, the TP will keep on increasing. 2 workers also it is underutilized, 3 workers also it is underutilized. It is at the best when we have the 3rd worker, that is where your MP also is, the MP also is maximum. After that, the land remains fixed. Okay? Here we have seen the land is remaining fixed, but the workers are keeping on adding. Now, how many workers can you keep on adding to one particular piece of land? There is a limit to that. So, naturally, as you add, TP will increase, okay? But the rate at which TP will increase. Here, till the 3rd worker, TP is increasing at a very fast rate, at an increasing rate. But later on, from the 3rd worker onwards, if we add more, TP will increase, but the rate at which it is increasing, it will be slow. Okay? It will increase, but at a slower rate, because of which MP will start to decrease, MP will start to decline. After that, if we keep on increasing, TP will reach its maximum point. You cannot increase it beyond that. Okay? And there is a limit to which the number of workers can work on a fixed piece of land. So, TP will become maximum, and if you still add more workers, TP will come down and MP will become negative. That means it is useless adding those last 2 workers because they are not contributing anything positive to the production, but they will have to be paid wages, they will be provided with maybe some facilities. So, all those facilities, wages will be a waste for the owner because their productivity is negative. They are contributing nothing at all to the total productivity where that land is concerned. Now, this diagram is also a replica of when we put that schedule in the form of a diagram. This is what we will be getting. We have TP, as I have told you all, in the first stage TP is increasing, it is increasing at a very fast rate, okay, and MP also is increasing. Then you add more variable factor, which is the labor in this case. That time TP continues to increase, but the speed of TP becomes slightly lesser. It starts increasing at a diminishing rate and then it reaches maximum. When TP is in the second stage, we have added more units of labor, MP starts to come down, but remains positive. It is still beneficial, okay. It is still okay for the owner to continue employing the workers. So, this is TP which is increasing in the second stage, but as I have mentioned, the rate becomes slower. It starts increasing at a diminishing rate. When this happens, MP starts to come down, the marginal product of the workers. So, this was the best point, okay. After that, the marginal product comes down. And if more variable factor or more workers are added to the land, okay, the owner brings more workers, then the TP will start declining and MP will be negative, okay. So, what you have to remember, when TP is maximum, that time MP will become 0, and in the third stage, if we add more workers or more variable factor, then TP is going to start declining and MP is going to become negative. Now, from the exam point of view, I am just once again focusing on all the 3 stages which are there. The first stage, as I have clearly said, TP, okay, increases at an increasing rate, MP also increases, but it remains positive. Second stage, TP continues to increase, but the rate becomes less. So, it is a diminishing rate and it reaches its maximum point. MP starts to decrease, but remains positive, and when TP is maximum, MP is 0. I will just name the stages again. Stage of increasing returns, stage of diminishing returns, and the third stage, stage of negative returns, because now TP decreases, but MP starts becoming negative. Now, this is how it works in the short run. Let us see what happens in the long run. In the long run, we have something called as the law of returns to scale. Being long run, we have to remember that all the factors are variable. There are no fixed factor, but at the same time, one thing I want you all to keep in mind, these factor inputs, okay, they change simultaneously. That means they will be changing together. The labor also will be changing, and at the same time the capital also will be changing, and they change in the same proportion. So, if labor becomes double, then capital also will double. If labor becomes 3 times, then capital also will be moving 3 times. One more point that I would like to bring to your notice, children, that this table is not there for the exam. From the examination point of view, we do not have this table. Our focus is only the 3 stages. But this table, I believe, will help you all to better understand what I am talking about. So, here we have the 3 stages, the first one, the second one, and the third one. We have labor, we have capital, and both these combined together, we have the output. So, let us say we had 2 workers, 4 capital, and the output, maximum output that they are able to generate is 50 units. Okay. Let us say they were producing ice creams. Okay. Season is becoming hot again. So, they are producing ice creams. So, they are going to be producing 50 ice creams. Now, what we are doing? We are doubling the labor. From 2, it is becoming 4. from 4 it is becoming 8. So naturally what will you expect the output to become? You will expect that the output also will double. From 50 it should become 100. But what is happening here is that instead of 100 it is becoming 120. So the inputs have gone into a particular percentage, but the output is much more than how much input has gone in. So instead of becoming 50 to 100, it is increasing from 50 to 120. So your input is an amount, but the output is much more than that, and that is why it is called as a stage of increasing returns. You put in little, but you have got more benefit or more output. So the stage is called as increasing returns to scale. Second stage, again we have doubled. From 4 it became 8, from 8 it became 16, but this became exactly double. It was 120, it exactly doubled into 240. So that's why it becomes constant. Tu jitle galta, that is how much you are going to be getting. Okay, you are not going to get more, nor are you going to get less. You put in, and that is how much you are going to be getting. So that's why it is called as constant returns to scale. While the third stage, labor is doubled, capital is doubled, but this, if it was doubled, it would have become 480. But what it is happening is only 400. Okay, it is only 400. So there is a reduction. You've put in more, but you are not getting as much as you should be getting. You are getting less. Okay, so because of, as I had mentioned earlier, these economies have started to come into the picture. So you are getting lesser returns. So that's why the third stage is called as the diminishing returns to scale. I have mentioned all these stages. Here you've put in the input in a particular proportion, the output is more than proportion. That's why the stage is called as increasing returns to scale. In the second case, you have put again input a particular proportion, and the same percentage you are getting the output also. So that's why it's called as a constant returns to scale. But in the third stage, you have put in input, but the output that you are getting is less than what you have put in. So that's why it is called as a diminishing returns to scale. So these are the three stages that we have to focus on, mainly from the examination point of view. Now we are moving on to certain other concepts. The first concept is cost. Now if I ask you children, I'm sure you all will be able to tell me what is cost. Okay. So cost is basically the expenditure. The producer will be producing the item. To produce that, he will be using certain factors, certain non-factors. On all of that, he will be spending money. So his total expenditure that he is going to get on the factor as well as on the non-factor, that becomes his cost. Okay. Now cost can be both in the short run as well as long run cost. So this is something that you have to keep on remembering, short run and long run. Short run, we have both fixed factor and we have variable factor. So the fixed factor will also cost money, the variable factor also is going to cost money. So the total cost which is spent on the fixed factor becomes the total fixed cost, and the total cost that is spent on the variable factor becomes the total variable cost. So here you all can clearly see. So suppose the farmer is spending money on buying the land, buying a tractor. So that money that he is spending becomes your total fixed cost, because they are fixed factors. They will not be changing very soon. But if he is spending money on the workers, okay, that will become his variable cost, the wages that he will be paying to the workers, or maybe he is providing them with food. So the money that he will be spending on cash payments as well as payments in kind, all that will become his total variable cost. And when we add both of them together, we add the total fixed cost to the total variable cost, we get the total cost in the short run. In the long run, what will happen? In the long run, there are no fixed cost. All factors are variable. All can be changed over a period of time. He can build, suppose it's an industry, he can build a new factory, he can buy new machinery, or suppose it is our example of our farmer. He can expand the land. He had only 1 acre, he may buy 2 acres of land, he may get more tractors, more harvesters, more laborers. So everything can be changed. So all the expense together will become his total cost in the long run. There is no total fixed cost, no total variable cost separately under the long run. Everything comes under your total cost. Then we have the average. Okay, children, one thing I want you all to keep in mind. Total, average, marginal. These things keep in mind. Total, sum, average is per unit, and the marginal is the additional, because when we are talking about product, talking about cost, talking about revenue, in all these cases we will be seeing total, we will be seeing average, we will be seeing marginal. So the key words keep in mind: total, sum total. Add up everything together, you get your total. Marginal is the extra that you are getting, the additional that you are getting, and average, when you divide and you get per unit how much, that will become your average. So here also average cost is per unit. Now the farmer, let's say, has produced 50 tons of rice. Okay, per ton of rice or per bag of rice, how much did it cost him? Where the land, the labor, the tractor, the fertilizer, all the water, irrigation system, where everything, when he considers his cost, each unit, how much did it cost him, that will become your average cost. And how do you get it? You take the total cost and divide it by the quantity that you have produced. So if you have taken 50 tons and you want to find out about 1 ton, okay, so then how much is the cost? So let's say his cost was 50,000. So 50,000 divided by 50. Okay, so then what he will get is 1,000 is his cost per ton, where per ton is concerned. So that is how we get the average cost. Moving on to the, okay, under average cost also we have the average fixed cost and the average variable cost. The average fixed cost, we are considering the total. So we will consider AFC will be FC divided by Q. So we are considering only the fixed cost. We are not considering the total cost. Fixed cost divided by the quantity that you have produced, you will get average fixed cost, and fixed variable cost divided by the quantity produced, you will get the average variable cost. Marginal, as I have mentioned again and again, it is the addition. Suppose I have produced 50 tons and now I want to produce more. So I am going to increase my laborers maybe. So how much, if I increase 1 unit or 1 laborer, how much will my total cost be? That, or how much will be the increase or the addition to my total cost, that comes as my marginal cost. This formula is similar to what we had done under marginal product, and it is done in the same manner, only instead of product we will be considering the cost. The next thing that we are going to consider is the concept of revenue. Now the farmer has worked hard, he had spent money, all his costing, and he ultimately produced the product. Now producing the product is not enough for the farmer. He is looking for profit, he is looking to earn some extra money. So naturally, for that to happen, he has to sell. Please remember, children, for revenue, what is important is not how much is produced. Yes, how much is produced is important, but the main or the bigger focus here is how much is sold. How much is sold in the market, that is what we are looking where revenue is concerned. So by selling the commodity, how much money is the person or the owner or the entrepreneur getting, or in our example, how much the farmer is getting by selling all his crop, that becomes his revenue. Now please remember, revenue is different from profit. Profit and revenue is not the same. We take the revenue, and we remove out the cost from it. How much was the cost of the farmer? We remove out from that, and the money which is remaining becomes the profit. So, profit is revenue minus cost. Same way, revenue will become cost as well as profit. When both are added together, we will be getting the revenue. Here also, as I have said, we have to remember these three things: total revenue, average revenue, and marginal revenue. Total revenue, suppose I have sold 10 bags, and each of the bag I sold it for 1,500. I have sold 10 bags for 1,500 each bag. So, 15,000 will become my total revenue. I sold one more bag, one more extra bag, the 11th bag, I sold it, let's say, for 1,300. So, this extra that I have generated by selling one more unit, that becomes my marginal revenue. But if I want to find an average, sometimes it may happen that I may have sold one product at a higher rate, second one I may have sold it at a discounted rate. So, I may get different revenue for different products. But if I want to find my average, then I will take my full revenue, my total revenue that I have got, and I will divide it by Q. Please note, children, that Q here is not the quantity that is produced, it is the quantity that is sold. So, when I divide it by the quantity that I have sold, what I get is my average revenue. So, we have come to the end, to the first part of this particular chapter. So, I am just going to brush up once more what are the concepts that we have to keep in mind. First thing, production function. It is a functional, a technical relationship between input as well as the output. It works in both the short run as well as in the long run. So, in the short run, what happens is that certain factors will remain fixed, certain will become variable, but in the long run, since the time period is much more, all the factors are variable. Then next we have seen about total product, marginal product, and the average product. Total, as I have mentioned, what you have to keep in mind is it is the sum, the total. How many workers are there? How much each one has produced? You add them together, you get your total product. Extra, by adding one more worker, how much extra you are able to get, that becomes your marginal product. And if you divide the total product by the number of workers, what you get is your average product. Next on, we move to the law of variable proportion, which I have mentioned is a short run. So, there are certain factors which are fixed, certain which are variable. So, the fixed factor will remain constant. We will keep on adding more and more of the variable factor, and when we do that, after some time the marginal product of the variable factor will become lesser and lesser. Okay, we have seen the assumptions where each of the variable factor is homogeneous, it is efficient, equally efficient, okay, but it is only the variable factor which can be changed, and the state of technology remains the same. Then we have the schedule, which clearly shows that as we add more and more of the variable factor, the marginal product of the variable factor will keep on going down. Continue adding more workers, it will become 0. Still, if we continue adding, it can even go down to negative. And we have the diagram showing the TP as well as the MP and the relationship between both of them in these different stages, the stage 1, stage 2 and the stage 3. The stage 1 being increasing returns, stage 2 being diminishing returns, and the stage 3 being negative returns because of the way the MP is working. MP increases, starts diminishing, and further it becomes negative. Next, we have seen to the law of returns to scale. This is a law where the long run is concerned, and here all the factors are variable and they are changing simultaneously. Both of them are changing together and they are changing in the same proportion. We have used this schedule to see how the changes happen, how the output first increases, remains constant, and then it starts to diminish, giving us the 3 stages of increasing returns to scale, constant returns to scale, and diminishing returns to scale. Then we have seen the various concepts of cost, both in the short run as well as in the long run. Short run, we have fixed cost as well as variable cost, cost on the fixed factors and cost on the variable factors. When we add them up together, we get our total cost. Same way, the average cost is per unit cost that of each unit that has been produced, and there also we have the average fixed cost and the average variable cost that we will be considering. And the third one under cost is the marginal cost, the extra or the additional cost that incurs by producing one more extra unit where the marginal cost is concerned. Next, we moved on to the revenue concept, the money that is generated by selling, how revenue is different from the profit, how profit and cost both added together will give us the revenue. And in revenue also, we have total revenue, average revenue, and the marginal revenue. Total revenue is the money, the total amount of money that has been earned. Average is when it is the per unit of output sold. It is the same as the price of the commodity. Okay, what is the price? That it is the same thing. And the marginal revenue is the extra that we will get by selling one more or one less, or the extra that we lose out by selling one less of the product in the market.
Prudent Scholars, powered by Lupin Pharmaceuticals.
अब आपकी सुरक्षा आपके हाथों में। ल्यूपी सेफ हैंड सैनिटाइजर, आपका और चेन्नई सुपर किंग्स का फर्स्ट लाइन ऑफ डिफेंस। अब आपकी सुरक्षा आपके हाथों में। ल्यूपी सेफ हैंड सैनिटाइजर, आपका और चेन्नई सुपर किंग्स का फर्स्ट लाइन ऑफ डिफेंस। अब आपकी सुरक्षा आपके हाथों में। ल्यूपी सेफ हैंड सैनिटाइजर, आपका और चेन्नई सुपर किंग्स का फर्स्ट लाइन ऑफ डिफेंस।